So what if the government gave you $500 every month, no strings attached? Would it make your life a little easier? That's the question being asked in Ulster County, 2 hours north of New York City. Half of the residents there were living paycheck to paycheck even before the pandemic. Now they're applying for the biggest universal basic income program in the country. Here's CNBC's Contessa Brewer.
I have a side job just to make a little extra money to pay for food. It's just getting too pricey.
Single mom Pauline Ostrander has 2 kids, one with special needs. She works 2 jobs, usually 12 hours a day, and makes $25,000 a year.
It would mean me not having to work 2 jobs and I can be home more with my kids. They don't see me very much.
She's just applied to be part of the pilot program in Ulster County, New York. Families who earn less than $47,000 would receive $500 a month for 1 year. Some 4,000 people have applied for 100 slots.
It's encouraging that people want to participate, but it is tragic that we have that many families struggling right now.
County Executive Pat Ryan believes direct payments, no strings attached, is a more efficient way of helping those in need with wider impact.
Our whole economy is going to benefit.
Needs are flexible, right? What you need from month to month is going to shift. And most of our programs don't work that way. There's no flexibility.
University of Pennsylvania researchers have studied this program in Stockton, California, and more than a half dozen other cities, and early results are promising. Now, for the first time, they will study it on a county-wide level and will include rural families as well.
We take a baseline survey, including metrics around psychological well-being, financial strain, financial stress, household food insecurity, parenting, and household dynamics.
The money to fund the payments came from private donations, sidestepping, for now, arguments against using taxpayer money. Critics also argue guaranteed income incentivizes laziness. Evidence shows the exact opposite.
We actually saw an increase in full-time employment. So what we've learned is that when you're giving people a bit of a floor, right? So $500 is just a floor. It's something to jump off of. It alleviates just enough strain in terms of time and sort of opportunities that people are able to apply for better positions.
Pauline Ostrander, the mom you met in my story, believes so strongly in the ways a monthly payment could help. Of her $25,000 salary, she donated to Andrew Yang's presidential campaign because he supports universal basic income. Shep.
Contessa, thank you. Andrew Yang is with us now, candidate for New York City mayor these days, former presidential candidate, of course. Andrew, great to see you. You ran on this. It's happening here and there. Between experiments like the one in upstate New York and others, plus stimulus checks, local and federal governments are spending billions of dollars and sending them directly to Americans. Is this a good test of your campaign platform, and do you think it'll catch on?
Of course it'll catch on, Shepard, because we're living it. Right now, tens of millions of American families have seen their incomes either reduced or in some cases completely taken away by the pandemic. And now tens of millions of us are getting these $1,400 stimulus checks that are helping provide a lifeline for millions of families. It makes us stronger, healthier, more secure, mentally healthier, improves our relationships. 55% of Americans are now for cash relief in perpetuity, and 85% are for cash relief during this pandemic.
As a candidate for mayor in the big city, you've proposed what amounts to $1 billion a year plan to give that money directly to the city's poor. New York City is in a world of hurt financially, and you haven't shared specifics on where you'd get the money. Why not? Don't voters have a right to know?
Of course. And we've been very clear about where we're going to get the money, Shepard. You have landlords like Madison Square Garden who've been enjoying massive tax breaks. MSG's tax breaks, $40 million a year alone. If you look at that money and you get it back into the city's hands, plus you invest some level of the city's resources, we can alleviate extreme poverty here in New York City. And the way the city works is that if you keep someone in a more stable situation, they'll actually end up saving public resources, because when someone hits our streets or our shelters, it's very expensive, both on a human level and an economic level.
MSG is not going to foot the whole bill for that. I mean, the voters deserve a few more specifics than that, don't you think?
Sure. So if you look at the property tax exempt landlords in New York City, and if they were paying in what they should be for police services, fire services. MSG is just an example, but if MSG is $40 million a year alone, this easily gets into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And New Yorkers know that a lot of these institutions have been essentially getting a free ride on city services for years.
You know, I worked in a place once where they'd call this free stuff and say handouts don't work. I think a lot of people who believe in conservative economic policy would say this is the worst thing you can do. There are some of those in New York City. How do you convince them?
Well, again, a majority of Americans now know that this is the path we should be on, because when this money comes into our hands, where does it go, Shepard? It goes to locally owned small businesses. It goes to car repairs. It goes to sometimes getting a better job or even starting a business. This is capitalism where income doesn't start at zero, which is going to function at a much higher level than if you have millions of Americans who don't have money to spend, can't be consumers, and even can't make ends meet.
You know, while you're here, there's been a surge in crimes and violence, for that matter, against Asian Americans in New York City, on the West Coast, really across the country. What specifically can be done to put a stop to this?
It's a devastating time in the Asian American community. I just met with a worker who was attacked on the street for no reason other than his race. Here in New York City, I've proposed that we need to fully fund the Asian Hate Crimes Task Force. Right now, it's a volunteer effort. We need to designate these incidents as hate crimes, and we need to build connections with the Asian American community, because I hate to say this, but a lot of these incidents are still not being reported. Many Asian Americans do not have that kind of relationship with law enforcement or city officials, and I'd like to change that.
Andrew Yang, running for mayor in the big city. Andrew, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Let's get New York City back, and cash relief's one way to do it. Thank you, Shepard.
All right. Thank you.
Put the money in our hands. 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 Can we afford it? Yes. Will it cause inflation? No. Is it awesome? Yes. Is anyone trying to make it happen? Yeah, that guy.